Republicans, perhaps unsurprisingly, decided that since the election is soon, it's time to play dirty. So Mitch McConnell and Kentucky Republicans came up with a new sleazeball trick. I've never seen this before. As everybody knows, I've been following politics for a pretty long time. They sent out these messages to Kentucky Democrats. Take a look. For everybody listening on the live show and you can't see it, it says, election violation notice. And then, it would have the name of the person. Again, this was sent specifically to Democrats. If I can read that, it's a little blurry, but it looks like it says, the information enclosed contains facts related to a possible fraud being perpetrated on citizens across Kentucky. This document is intended to be read solely by the citizen named below. And it says, on the other side, you are at risk of acting on fraudulent information that has been targeted for citizens living in, and then it says the name of the county and the date. So, it looks like an official government letter telling you that you can't vote, or there was some sort of process with the registry, or for whatever reason, don't go to the polling station because of X, Y, or Z. But when you open it and you read it, it's just right-wing propaganda. It's an attack ad on Allison Lundergan Grimes. So what are they trying to do? They're simply trying to scare people, scare Democrats, into not going to the polls, which is why they're sending out letters that say in big, bold words, election violation notice. Now, even if you prevent, 300 people, 516 people, 1,000 people, whatever the number is, that could be the deciding factor in this race. It's a pretty close race right now between Mitch McConnell and Allison Lundergan Grimes. So this is dirty tricks at the last minute to try to cheat your way into victory. And I haven't even brought up the fact that the Republican Party, in terms of at a national level, they're trying to do this list where it purges 1 of every 7 black voters in the country. Millions of Democratic voters. They're just trying to purge them. Meanwhile, they know they're using sleazy tactics, and they know that it's not actually true that these people should be kicked off the rolls. Because, for example, what they do is they'll take, if your name is John Smith, but it's John C. Smith, and somebody in another state is John F. Smith, well, they say, no, we can't allow either one of them to vote because it looks like there possibly could have been voter fraud where one time this person voted in Iowa, then they went across the country and voted in another state because their name is John Smith. So they purposefully ignore the middle initials. They purposefully ignore the social security numbers. They purposefully ignore all evidence to the contrary that this, in fact, is not voter fraud, and they just say, well, we'll just kick off everybody to be safe. In reality, they're not being safe. They are trying to purge the Democratic rolls so that they win, because Republicans are aware at this point that the lower the turnout, the better the chances are that they win. So what this reminds me a lot of is push polling. I don't know how many of you guys remember this, but this is a dirty trick that recently has been picked up by Republicans. It started, I believe, one of the first documented cases was back when George W. Bush was running in the primary. This was back before he was president. What he did is he would make phone calls to Republicans in different states during the primary season, and he would say, well, not him personally, of course, the people who worked on his campaign. They would say, would you be more or less likely to vote for John McCain if you knew that he fathered an illegitimate black baby? He didn't father an illegitimate black baby, but this is why they call it push polling. You act like you're doing a poll, but you push the idea that you want to push on the individual. And then, of course, we're talking about deep red state Republicans who, if they hear the word African American, they hear the word black, they're like, oh, I could never vote for John McCain. He fathered an illegitimate black baby. And, of course, they're not going to fact check. They're Republicans. But so that's one example. Then there's also, in 2008, a Republican mailer to Jewish voters said that Obama supports Hamas. Ridiculous, untrue, but again, this is sleazy tricks. And then there was one more example which happened recently. Remember when Stephen Colbert's sister was running in, I forget which state, one of the Carolinas, I think? Her opponent did push polling where they made phone calls and they said, would you be more or less likely to vote for her if you heard she had an abortion? Would you be more or less likely to vote for her if you heard that she was imprisoned? Would you be more or less likely to vote for her if you heard that she was in contempt of court during her divorce hearing? None of that stuff is true. None of it's factual. They just decided, well, let's smear them as much as possible. Let's be as dirty as possible. Let's lie. And then as long as we win, we win. And then when we're in office, that's all forgotten. Nobody's going to discuss it anymore. Well, guess what? We're going to discuss it. See, that's the thing. The mainstream media should be all over this disgusting gutter politics, which nobody can endorse from a logical perspective if they're being objective and if they're being fair-minded. But the mainstream media is asleep at the wheel, because guess who's doing all the dirty tricks? It's the Republicans. So if they came out there and told the truth and said, these Republicans are doing dirty tricks, then all of a sudden the media would be called, it would be told to them that they have a liberal bias and they don't know what they're talking about and they're in the tank for Obama and they're in the tank for the Democrats. And of course, that's not true. It would just be, hey, these are the facts. The facts are the Republicans are the ones who are doing it. But that would be spun, and Fox News would push the narrative that there's an anti-Republican bias, and that's why they don't do it. They don't do it because they need to play the false equivalence game, they need to play the fake neutrality game, and that prevents them from telling the truth. Well, that's why we're here. We're here to tell you the truth, and the reality is that Mitch McConnell and many other Republicans across the country, not only are they running dirty campaigns, they're lying to you.